Hey guys, my name is Nikhil,
My name's Francisco, guys.
and welcome back to the second episode of Anime Hub.
Guys, guess what? We spent an hour doing what, thank you?
We actually did mess up our recording the first time.
Of
We
course,
spent about an
as
hour
many
recording
novices do.
excellent content for you guys.
It was alright.
It was actually alright, and we deleted it.
Yeah, it's great. We didn't delete it.
I hate my life.
We just didn't record it.
Anyway, so my name is Nikhil, and this is Francisco, and we are students at the University of Illinois. We are doing a podcast. We're called Anime Hub, and our second episode is on Madoka Magica, which we talked about at the end of the first episode, which was Demon Slayer.
Yeah, it's gonna be a two-part series, by the way. Madoka Magica has this movie called Rebellion.
Yeah,
Fantastic
we're
movie.
talking about Rebellion separately because Madoka Magica is such a concise show, and it didn't need that much more, and then Rebellion happened. And Rebellion is its own thing that we wanted to talk about. So, in this episode, we'll be talking about Madoka Magica, and the next episode, we'll be talking about Rebellion. This is a
Sequel.
two-part episode, two-part show. Sorry, two-part episode, with the first part being now.
Yeah, first part being Madoka Magica, second part being Rebellion. Because Rebellion's such a paradigm shift for everything that happens in Madoka Magica that it does warrant its own respective episode.
So we'll begin by talking about Shaft.
Yeah, Studio Chef,
That's right,
fantastic.
Studio Shaft, gang. So the animation for Studio Shaft is very, very surreal. Two really, really popular anime that Studio Shaft made are Madoka Magica and Monogatari. Francisco knows a lot more about Monogatari than I do.
It's a good show, guys. Difficult to get into. Very beautiful show. Some of the most prettiest, beautiful women from this show. I don't know, man. It's like actually the most. That's the best woman in that show, in my opinion, for female leads.
Really?
And yeah, definitely, they're all good characters. You don't believe me? They're pretty good. So the interesting thing about Studio Shaft is their animation style. They have pretty surreal scenery, and in Madoka Magica that really stands out whenever witches appear on Madoka Magica. So Madoka Magica is a show about magical girls, and they have to go up against witches. But
This
what
is
makes
a
this
spoiler alert for anyone who has not watched the show yet. I would
Okay, for
recommend pausing the podcast, watch the show, then come back to it when you get the time.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's worth it. The best thing about Madoka Magica comes from the discussions that you get to have afterwards with people. It says a lot of the writer himself, Geno Urobuchi, and how he goes about writing a story. He's
Yeah,
huge in
Geno, which
tragedy.
is insanely talented. He's very thoughtful, and he approaches things like you would in real life with his characters. They're very real, and they're very grounded, which makes Madoka Magica a very unique anime.
Yeah, for sure.
So what's really cool about Madoka Magica? What's really cool about Madoka Magica is the art, and this goes back to, I believe, Salvador Ali.
Yeah, it's just very surreal art that goes for Madoka Magica. Whenever the witches appear, that's very strong influence from Salvador Dali. Everything in Madoka Magica looks pretty standard. Something that they did that was really interesting for Madoka Magica is that they advertise it as a regular, off-the-mill, reskin pre-cure show. So all of the advertising didn't suggest anything dark to go on it unless you actually looked at who was involved in the production studio. The moment you read Geno Urobuchi as the writer, you should expect some pretty insane stuff. That wasn't known back then because he was not too much of a prolific writer. He actually got on the map thanks to Madoka Magica and Fate Zero, both which came out in 2011, which in my opinion is probably one of the best years for anime in the previous decade.
Steins Gate also came out in 2000.
Steins Gate, what else came out in Hunter x Hunter came out in 2011. Fate Zero came out in 2011, Steins Gate. And I think Nichijou came out in 2011. Not too sure about that one. But it's definitely an amazing year. In my opinion, the best.
Yeah, 2011 was a great year for anime. And another really cool thing, going back to the animation point of Madoka Magica, it also takes a lot of influence from Tim Burton and Wes Anderson.
Is it influence from them? Or like, has the director said that for sure? Or like, do we
Shaft
just
has
see it?
come out and said that Wes Anderson films and Tim Burton, I think, pictures have inspired a lot of their work. And I think it's pretty evident when you compare movies like, even though The Grand Budapest Hotel came out after Madoka Magica, the qualities are really the pictures and the animation, the color are very, very similar in both.
Definitely the color.
The movie and the show.
Not only that, but it's the humor in Wes Anderson's amazing, guys. If you haven't seen his stuff, please go watch his stuff.
Yeah,
I like
definitely watch some Wes Anderson films.
If I'm being honest, I don't think the studio has come out and actually said that they're influenced, but like people have seen the similarities between the two.
Yeah, the similarities are apparent and they're there.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm sure Studio Shaft has maybe dabbled in some Wes Anderson, Tim Burton work. They're very, very famous directors, but I think it's more the fans and us have noticed that there are quite a bit of similarities between the two.
One of the premier styles that Studio Shaft likes doing, and it's more prevalent in Monogatari, is that French New Wave of directing shots.
Yeah. It's a French technique.
Yeah, it's a definite French technique. The deal is that there's a rule of thumb that says you should always want to have like the two people who are talking in the camera, so that you don't break the 180 rule, in which case it doesn't look like they're in a completely separate room, right? But the French New Wave breaks that convention, and whenever someone is speaking, they have an entire scene, or the entire camera is on them, and they manipulate the scenery around them, or at least you don't even see them speaking, but they're like having a conversation, and it like flips back and forth between the person talking and the next person speaking, and as they keep flipping back and forth, the entire scene changes to make it look like they're not even in the same location. They're only connected through the conversation that they're having, which is helpful from an animation point because they can just flex.
Yeah, and I think it's really unique to have that in. And Studio Shaft is known for doing that. They did that in both, not only Monogatari, but they also did that in Madoka Magica. It's fairly obvious when you can see like Mami and Madoka talk in episode 3. Spoiler alert, we will be talking about episode 3 a lot. So just as an FYI, I would highly recommend watching the show before continuing the podcast. Yeah. And then also you have Tim Burton.
I'm not sure about this one.
Okay, so Francisco's not super sure about it, but in my opinion, Tim Burton has some similarities. There's a very old animation short that Tim Burton did in the early 1970s. It's called The Island of Dr. Agor. Now, in this animation skit, it was mostly just drawings, and it's very visualistic. And the drawings in the Island of Dr. Agor remind me really, really heavily of the witches in Madoka Magica. The drawing art and the art styles, to me, are very, very similar. And I can definitely see like some sort of influence or some sort of connection there. I feel like I think the connection
only goes as far as say we're going for something spooky.
Okay, I think that like the line strokes and all that, they're there. I think there is some connection.
The witches,
in terms of like the art style.
I don't think the witches have. I mean, something that was mentioned about the witches is they're supposed to be surreal and like look out of place from the universe of Madoka Magica, and something that like elevates that look. It's the fact that they bring things from our time, right? They take pictures of it and they just paste it on there. They have cogs and they have dolls. They look like they're just cutouts.
Like demonic monkeys. Yeah, they have some like really disturbing.
They look like
images.
They're cutouts, dude.
Yeah, it's like they're taken directly from our world and just put into animation.
Yeah,
which is insane because it kind of contrasts and parallels that concept of what's real and what's not. Almost, if that makes sense. Like you have realism,
like
and then you have like that cartoon animation.
Yeah.
And you have the parallel between the two, which I think is really.
Yeah, cool. It helps you to realize when you're in a witch's territory, because that's when the animation goes pretty crazy.
Oh yeah, the animation goes nuts there, and it's really beautiful to see, honestly.
Yeah, it's trippy stuff. It's like an acid trip. I mean, I wouldn't know, but like from
I would not know either.
I would not know, guy.
I'm sure that would it'd be an adventure. Yeah, so what's also interesting about Madoka Magica is the head tilts are actually really, really popular, surprisingly.
That's a Shaft thing. Usually folks don't even know. Well, Shaft isn't as prominent as it used to be. It was more of a meme like a couple years ago, back when they had like a lot of Monogatari stuff coming out. They would always use the head tilt as one of the poses for the characters. It's to the point that it's comical.
And it almost got the feeling that they were looking down on you, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, but it's actually mostly because of a single director that really likes that style or likes that pose, and he always added it to his stuff. It shows up in some of their other works. They also made Nisekoi. They made that one about the torture sensei dude, which is one of their older ones. I only know about it because I see some A and B's on it sometimes. I'm not entirely familiar with it. Our Arakawa Under the Bridge, which is a comedy sketch, reminds me a lot of Gintama and their humor. But
really?
But it's not as good. I mean, I had a fun time, but I was like, it's pretty. It's from Shaft. I can do this, but it was alright.
Okay.
That wasn't too bad. But something else about Studio Shaft, like last time we were talking about Ufotable, Studio Shaft had for Madoka Magica, like we said, had Skin Urobuchi on it. In 2011, he did Fate Zero and Madoka Magica, so he wrote for both, and they're both tragedy-esque shows. And what's so special about the way Gen Urobuchi writes is that for his characters, he writes them as concepts.
Yeah, they represent an ideal that's true in real life.
Yeah, they represent an ideal, while they might be like because it's a narrative medium, right? He's able to like write these characters not exactly as human characters, but like to represent a concept, and he plays them out and how they would interact with other characters with those that reflect those concepts.
Yeah.
This is more relevant, or this is that way of thinking for his writing is more reflective in Fate Zero than it is in Madoka Magica. Madoka Magica, all of the characters synergize very well and they mesh well together. But in Fate Zero, there's like three kings that represent their very distinctive ways of ruling people. And one of the best scenes in Fate Zero has those three kings meet together and they discuss, because as kings do, they meet and have a toast with wine.
Yeah.
So you have the king of knights, the king of kings, and the king of conquerors. And they like mention about their different ideals. The king of conquerors leads his men and his people to look at him and think, I want to be just like that person. The king of kings leads to defend their people to the point that, but it's to the point where there's such a perfect embodiment of a king that the people cannot look but like almost see an entirely different person that isn't human. So the king of kings fights only for their people to the point that they have no individuality, and they almost get separated from their people. But the king of conquerors fights to the point where one of their followers would want to stab them to become a king. So the king of kings wants to get their people to lead to have ambition, while the king of kings wants to make sure that people are always protected to the point where it feels as if their king is a monster.
Yeah.
Which is difficult for the king of kings because it hurts knowing that like your close confidants look at you and they think, and they can't see you as a person because you're so capable. But in the end, you just want them to be safe, and it's difficult not being able to like confine with someone that's so close to you.
That goes back to Mommy.
It does go back to
That
Mommy.
is Mommy's character, right? She is a really, really confident, outwardly person when you meet her, but when you get to know her and you see her internal conflict and her depression and what she's going through, her loneliness, you see that it's a really big reflection on real life, where a lot of people, they might express that they're going through all these things and like they might look like they're okay and they're having fun, or like they're really capable and like they're doing amazing things, but inside they're really eating up, and there's something that's eating them up.
Yeah,
And
Mommy.
they're going through something mentally.
Mommy's a really good character. Like I mentioned, they all mesh well together. Mommy needs someone, right? But then Madoka,
Needs to be
needed. Madoka needs to be needed because she feels like she has nothing going for her. Madoka sees Mommy and she sees someone that she can become, someone that she wants to become. Mommy sees Madoka and she sees what could have been hers, which is something that goes back
They're
to
two parts of one whole.
Yeah, they are two parts of one whole.
And like when they come together, they are one person.
They do, because when they come together, they become fulfilled
Yes.
in almost every aspect that they can imagine, which is
Yes.
something like a lot of people would like to be fulfilled, which is difficult because whenever you like get to a certain goal, you end up feeling empty again, and you end up losing the appreciation you had.
Which is why it was so important for Mommy to... Spoiler alert, this is huge. Mommy does die in episode 3. And it was actually very, very important for Mommy to die for that reason, so Madoka can grow, and then she needed to feel like, oh my god, I lost the one person that needed me the most. What do I do now?
I wouldn't go that far. That I don't think she was. We learned later on that like for reasons Mommy couldn't be in the show to conclude the
There
way
were
it did.
other reasons, yes. But
Yeah, I mean, people discuss often about the situation with Mommy and how her overconfidence were the reason why she like fell from grace. I have a difficult time dealing with that because of how capable mommy is in what she does. She's an orphan, sure, but she's also the only one with experience to the level of her. Whenever someone talks about being overconfident, I always feel like they're overestimating themselves. But mommy never once was in a position that I, or any one of the viewers thought she couldn't get out of it. It was just bad luck for what happened to her, which was her death. She just had a bad matchup. Like most events in life, not everything is constructed with perfect information. Just like a good reflection for life would be poker, right? Where you don't have all the perfect information, but you can play it out with what you have in your hand.
Yeah,
and what
you can do what you
know
can with the hand you have, or you can make the best of what you have.
Yeah.
But sometimes the other people can get really lucky on the river, and they can get exactly what they need.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing about poker. The reason why it's such a good reflection of life is that you pair up a world class champion, right, with a novice, and the world class champion still has a chance of losing just because of luck, of probability, of just how life is played. You can follow the rules perfectly, right? You can be driving a car. It's a green light. You go at it, and you can still get into a car crash because that's just how life is. It's there's a lot of terrible things that happen, and that's the whole thing about Geno Urobuchi. Geno Urobuchi loves writing tragedies, and what makes something a tragedy is that things can go from being hopeful to being complete depravity or like despair in like a blink of a second. What makes a scene so impactful for many directors, they've gone on record in saying this, is that they start a scene with a certain tone, right? You start a scene with being hope, and by the end of that scene, if they can like get everyone in the audience and in the people themselves to shift into despair, that brings out the most emotional response from the audience members.
It's a shock. It's an emotional shock.
It's an emotional shock, for sure. But like, it's very difficult to manage something like that.
Yes, no, that's for sure.
Mommy's situation came out of the blue, for sure. But there was a lot of foreshadowing that happened in it that, to this point, people are like, she like raised obvious death flags.
There were multiple death flags,
but I don't think
it wasn't that obvious though. I think that's what made it so unique, because once you started learning more and more about Mommy by episode 3, you were really comfortable with Mommy, and you were like, okay, she's probably going to be a regular. I wouldn't expect anything that bad to happen to her.
Yeah, there's also the fact
and then, boom, she dies.
Yeah.
And then you don't know.
It was
what
quick. It was the
I
end of the
watching
episode,
that, and I was shocked. Like for 5 minutes afterwards, I didn't say a thing. I was just sitting there like, what just happened?
Yeah. I think it was because of this episode that people in the anime community started doing the 3-episode rule.
Yeah, where you determine within the first 3 episodes if the anime is good or not.
Yeah, but I mean that's not a correct way of.
That's not. Yeah, I think you should. No matter what the anime, you should definitely just give it a try and see how far you can get.
Yeah,
but Madoka Magica is definitely a founder in that.
Yeah.
So advertisements were also really generic, which is really interesting, and kind of played on that 3-episode trope, where the advertisements were really, really common. So you felt like you were just watching another Magical Girl episode or another Madoka like it wasn't anything special. Sailor Moon is probably one of the most infamous Magical Girl shows in anime.
I don't think it's infamous. I think it's just
It's
famous.
pretty popular.
Oh, I know you said infamous. That's the opposite.
Okay.
Anyway, Sailor Moon is one of the like pioneers.
Yes,
when it comes
and
definitely
I
for
think
the
a
West
lot of
too.
people were expecting something similar. So when we got that episode 3 twist, it kind of defined the magical girl genre.
To come,
Yeah.
I feel like it was thanks to Madoka Magica that from that point on, whenever you saw magical girls in a show, you were expecting something dark and twisted in there. You weren't expecting the regular precure stuff fighting for friendship and everything working out kind of deal going for them. It was definitely, you expected something like Madoka Magica, and that was always in the back of your head ever since Madoka Magica happened. They've had a couple copycats from Madoka Magica. I've watched a few. I think it's pretty cool.
The concept itself is very unique, I think, and I think it helps elevate the magical girl trope and makes it a little more unique.
Yeah, I think one of the ones I read was Maho of the End or something like that. It was pretty edgy, but that's besides the point.
So Get Orobuchi, is a big contributor to this. We previously discussed in the episode that he enjoys writing his characters in a very real and idealistic way. And Mami and Madoka are big examples of this. Mami especially. She embodies the definition of needing someone to be fulfilled. She is someone who is strong on the outside but struggles with depression on the inside.
She needs a partner.
She needs a partner. And Madoka is the type of person that wants someone to rely on her.
Yeah.
So they just mesh perfectly together. They're two halves of one whole. Sayaka, on the other hand, is a very, very unique character. She's very average. She's beyond average. One of the most cool things about Madoka Magica is that the protagonists, quote unquote, are the most average people in the entire show. They're not super special, which makes them really interesting and really unique, because they're not special. They're just not. They're your everyday people.
All right. So for example, Madoka Magica, she was like pretty much given everything someone would ever want in life, but she still didn't feel fulfilled because she had no sense of self-worth. She didn't feel useful. Like her mom.
Her mom was like example. A CEO of a company. Like
going to be.
She
gets things done.
She was surrounded by very powerful people, and she was surrounded by people who were very successful. So she viewed herself as someone who could never reach those expectations. In school, she said herself, her grades were average. She was average at sports. She was average at everything. She never excelled in anything. She was the most average. She was average. Straight up average.
Just
she was your everyday person, and then she became someone special. And I think it's a reflection.
She had the potential of becoming someone special.
She had the potential.
Not only that, but she had the potential of becoming someone special instantly.
Which is amazing, because isn't that kind of like a reflection on a lot of people in society today?
How?
A lot of people want to be someone, right? They want to be special. Instantly would be the best. Obviously, with hard work, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes money, etc., etc. But a lot of people, if they had the option to become someone or something useful, if they had the option to contribute to society immediately, a lot of people would do it.
Not just contribute, just feel fulfilled.
Exactly.
It's not them wanting to contribute to society, but it's like if you get a sense of fulfillment, that's what people want.
If you love what you do and you know that you're at least doing something that you want to do, that's it.
And Madoka wants to be needed, which is detrimental.
Which is a big part of her
It goes to the point where she's a martyr for whatever she does.
Exactly. It's really sad, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. It's taken to the extreme, which is something that Gen Urobuchi likes doing because it's easier to work with. It's easier to work with because you can give other characters that extreme spectrum, but for a different aspect, and then you can see what happens when they conflict with each other.
Sayaka is a huge example of that.
Sayaka is someone so average that if it wasn't for her just being in the right place at the right time, she wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to become
There was
magical.
no way. She should not have been a magical girl. The only reason she did was because she followed Madoka into the room.
She just followed someone.
Exactly. And then she became a magical girl because of that.
That's just how faith works, I guess. That's not only that, but Gen Urobuchi has gone on record there. It's Sayaka's faith to just die.
It's so sad. And
yeah.
Sayaka's whole story is just really weird in a sense, because she's doing this all out of love.
She's doing it out of obsession.
Yeah, it's a very twisted form of love almost.
It's a very normal form of love. It's not
really.
It's twisted, but it's normal.
How is it normal?
It's like whenever you meet someone and then you start fantasizing about what you can do for them or how you can get their attention.
Right, but she went like borderline obsession.
But the guy didn't know that. Not only that, she did that, she got no recognition for obvious reasons.
And Sayaka wanted recognition. The entire
time,
all she wanted was recognition. That was a big part of why she kept pursuing him. I don't think she pursued the boy. She pursued the recognition and the fact of I need fulfillment to be recognized by this individual.
She also loved the idea of being a magical girl too. That was thanks to Mami, because Mami is the epitome of what it means to be a perfect magical girl.
Yeah, she was a perfect magical girl.
Yeah, she was. On the outside, definitely capable. She has the most experience. There's nothing almost that was given her way that she couldn't manage, which is amazing. Even QB, we gotta mention this. QB is the companion of these magical girls, right? And like every magical girl show, there's this trope that you have you have a companion who's an animal, very cute, and it just follows you around and it provides your magic or something. It's related to the
It's
magic.
really interesting that like it's kind of similar to Made in Abyss, but all these girls and all these characters in the show are really cute.
Yeah, Made in
But-
Abyss.
Yeah,
That's a show
but
you should look into.
It's very, very.
What do you think of Made in Abyss, Nikhil?
We will get into that at another time. I am not a big fan of Made in Abyss. I like the show. I think the show objectively fantastic. Do I like it? That's a different story. But that's besides the point. It's very similar to Made in Abyss in the fact that it has all these really cute childlike characters that's like seems fun, but under it all, it's like another layer under it.
Intentionally so, too.
It's very dark, very grim. There's a lot more that meets the eye.
Yeah, after all, one of the huge themes, or something that Geno Ribushi wanted to pursue when writing Madoka Magica, was the concept of making a deal with the devil, was making a Faustian contract. It takes Madoka Magica takes a lot of German influences. For example, Faust is a German fable. It's also an opera. Eventually became an opera and written by Gautier, or a musical or something like that. And it takes a character known as the Dr. Faust, right? There's many different interpretations of how it goes, but effectively, he makes a contract with a demon called Mephistopheles. And because he goes and says there is no joy in life that I haven't experienced, and I can have no more joy in life. The demon disagrees and says, how about this? If I, as your servant, or if I can manage to bring you joy in life, I get your soul. And that's one of the origins of making a deal with a demon, with a devil. There's a lot of that German influence goes deeper into Madoka Magica in that some of the lyrics themselves are in German, and some of the names of the witches are also in German. To the point where one of the witches roughly translates to Festival of a Witch, I think, or Festival of something in German.
Yeah.
These are pretty prolific. They're all Easter eggs, of course. So they're like things that the directors and the key animators like put in to make it more obvious. It's like, yeah, it's a deal with the devil. It's cutesy. It looks cutesy, but it's a sham.
I think it also brings up the point of, would you, as the viewer, make a deal with the devil?
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I got away from the show when I first watched it. I realized that under the right circumstances and under the right conditions, I would. And the only reason I say that is because many of the characters in Madoka Magica were unfortunately put into a circumstance where they had to make a deal with the devil in order to live. If I was put in a very similar situation,
yeah,
I would do the same thing. I just would. I would, in my head, I would say yes immediately.
Especially Mommy. Mommy is a prime example.
Mommy was about to die. She was a prime example of this.
She was in a car accident. Her parents were there. Next thing you know, blurry eye vision, practically like, who knows if it's even real, right?
Yeah,
and
it's
like
life or death. She was in a life or death
something pops
situation.
up, little cute animal, and she's like, make a contract with me, and I can grant your wish.
Yeah.
And all she can think about is like, help me.
Yeah.
Right? That's
she
it.
Just,
That's
she just
like
needs to live. She needs to see another day. And that's a very human instinct. I need to see another day. I don't want to die.
yeah.
That phrase, I feel like a lot of people, like film does this really well, shows do it really well, but it's a very human characteristic where you just don't want to die. You want to see that other day. You want to spend another day with your friends, with your family. You want to keep going, whether it be for yourself or other people. And Mommy kind of represents that. And Kyubey represents
The potential.
To what extent? Yeah. To what extent would you give your soul to the devil? Or like, what would you do? What would have to be done to you to give your soul to the devil?
Yeah, Mommy lived, but it haunts her the fact that she had an opportunity to make a wish. She could have saved herself and her parents.
But she didn't do it.
But
she died of herself and only herself at that moment.
Which is fair, but like
completely fair.
For some, if you lived after that, you can't but help blame yourself. Like think, oh my God, if I could have just thought for a second, I could have had my family with me still.
It goes back to the concept of like death at that moment, and like she was in a situation where she almost didn't have a choice.
And it haunts her, man. It haunts her for the fact that she can't have her family anymore, and she had the opportunity to save them. She's an orphan at this point. 15, 14-year-old orphan. Has a really bougie place, but I mean, that's probably because of, some insurance.
But it's really funny because, like, Madoka and Sayaka, are completely average people with great families and a home. At the end of the day, they had no reason to become magical
And that's
girls.
actually something mommy repeatedly told them. It's like, I never got the opportunity to make a wish that I
But
could
you
have
guys
made.
do.
But you
Please
guys
choose
do.
wisely.
Yeah, she wanted to be someone that they can look to for guidance and wisdom.
That's true. And eventually, stuff happens. We don't want to give away too much of the plot because we do want you guys to watch the entire show. This is a show we feel that's very, very unique and very introspective, and it's worth watching.
We learn more about mommy as the show goes on. Actually,
Yes.
We learn a lot from just one flashback, and like understand mommy's character, and it was an insane flashback.
Oh yeah, and a big note. Before we keep going, Homura is a really, really, really important character. She's in fact my personal favorite character of the entire show. The only reason that we're not discussing her is because we feel she's extremely integral. And since this is a 2-part episode, we will talk about Homura and Mami and their relationship more in the next episode during Rebellion.
Yeah.
Because we feel that their relationship is something that definitely needs to be explored.
It's everyone, every character in Madoka Magica meshes so well together. Because they're all conflicting and they all synergize.
It's beautiful.
It's very smart.
They have Sayaka and Kyoko.
Sayaka and Kyoko, it's actually the definitive pair that people...
They're the couple. They're the couple
much.
of the show.
Yeah. They're the couple of the show. I mean, Sayaka, like, her entire gist is that she was after a guy, right? Like, at a point where it almost feels, like, emotionally manipulative from her hand.
Yeah. She was
unintentionally so.
Manipulative.
Because, what was the situation with the guy?
So the guy got injured. His 2 legs got injured in an accident. And I believe his arms?
Yeah. One of his arms.
Yeah, one of his arms.
A violinist.
And he could not play the violin, which was a big factor.
Prodigy
and
violinist.
He was a prodigy as well, and he was stuck in bed in the hospital for years.
Sayaka
blames herself because she was there during that incident.
No, she doesn't blame herself, by the way. It just happened. Because she was a fan. She was one of his first fans. They're both the same age, by the way, except he's exception.
I'm pretty sure Sayaka blames herself for not helping him.
I mean, she blames herself for not helping him because she can help him.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. And
because, QB's wish.
Yeah, QB's wish. And when Sayaka, spoiler alert, when Sayaka does wish that he'll become better and he'll get fully recovered, he kind of just shuts her off.
I don't even know if he shuts her off. I mean, don't forget that one of their friends says, "Yo, I'm gonna date this guy."
Yeah. That was also a big reason, and she hated that.
It was not that she hated it. She loves her friend, but it's like...
Nah, she hated it. If I was in that situation, I'd straight up be like, no. No. And she was like borderline upset. She wasn't even borderline. She was obsessed.
She got to the point where she even goes and looks at Madoka, and she's...
I don't think Sayaka was obsessed with the boy, though. I think she was obsessed with the ideal the boy represented. I think she was obsessed with the attention and like the fact of I want to be recognized, I want to be known. And that was one of Sayaka's, I think, biggest flaws as a character.
She says it best herself. I'm dumb. No, I was stupid. So stupid.
Yeah. At the end, yeah. And then...
You shouldn't make a wish for...
And I believe the last episode... This isn't anything to do with Homura, so this is not a huge spoiler, but we see the boy play the violin on a stage as the curtains...
Yeah.
And it just pans out, and you just hear the music, and it just stops. And that scene gave me goosebumps personally, because I felt like it was an end to a really tragic story.
It's a tragic story that he doesn't even know that happened.
Yeah, he doesn't even know that happened, which was the sad part of it all.
Like, he got everything back.
We, as the viewer, know exactly what happened, and we can't say or do anything about it. Her story was just like a tragic downfall, essentially.
You don't get any closure from it.
You don't.
It goes, and as you live your life, you don't get closure sometimes at all.
That's just another metaphor, I think, for closure.
Yeah, you don't always get it. It's a privilege. If you have it, good for you.
It's just so sad to see, and I think it's really relatable to a lot of people. For me, especially, like when I saw that, I was like, wow. There's some things I know in my life that I will always stick with me, and I will never really feel content about. And I think
Sayaka goes on record saying that she did get closure. I mean, she was one of...
At the end, right when she was dying, she was like, "I'm so happy I met you," blah 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 blah, and she felt that closure. But
for the boy too, that's like she
for
fell
the boy as well.
She fell in
but
love with...
I think Sayaka represents the idea of closure.
Yeah.
Right. And
of
she's
not
just
getting
pursuing
closure, of like having to accept it.
She's pursuing that ideal of like, oh my god, I need this, I need this, I need this, until she can feel good about herself. Again, the crazy thing about it all is Madoka and Sayaka are extremely average characters. There's nothing special about them.
Some of the other characters go through some insane stuff.
Yeah.
Mami, an orphan. Kyoko, which is Sayaka's respected partner, which we're not going to go into. Maybe a bit more in Rebellion.
In Rebellion, we will.
Hopefully. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Kyoko, but there's some people who vouch for Kyoko and Sayaka. No, they are... I mean, I see it. Okay. But Kyoko herself, she lost her parents. Her dad committed suicide. Her dad made a code, and she wished for something that led to that. Her wish, which wasn't selfish, led to people dying.
Yeah.
That's a tragedy herself.
She was the cause of a lot of people's deaths, and as a result, she stopped feeling empathy.
She wanted to stop feeling empathy.
And Sayaka kind of gave her the empathy back. And that's
she looked at Sayaka and she saw herself.
Yeah. She saw a reflection of herself and like what Sayaka could potentially turn into, which was her. And she didn't want that. And that's why at the end, when... This is a spoiler.
No, I don't know. You know what? Nah.
Okay, we will discuss this later in Rebellion, so we give you guys a chance.
We can move up to Sayaka anyway.
But yeah, it's just insane. These relationships that Geno Orobuchi throws at us are really just incredible because every character in this show just meshes so well together. And what's insane is that Madoka and Sayaka are very, very average people. They're nothing special. And in a way, they kind of represent us as a lot of humans, actually. A lot of us aren't anything special. Like, we might come from an average family, an average home. And at the end of the day, a lot of us are trying to become better versions of ourselves, or we're trying to reach goals that we want in our life.
Yeah, and that's something that Homura wants Madoka to realize, her self-worth. She has no self-worth.
She has no self-worth.
To the point, like, Homura says, Madoka, you have everything you would want. You just have to appreciate it and have gratitude for it.
And I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people see past that, and they're like...
It's difficult. It's something you have to train yourself to feel gratitude for
sure.
something.
It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort, because it's about taking what you have one step at a time. I think this year for me personally, I don't mean to get personal on this podcast, but I have a few friends that are graduating this coming year, and I realized fairly recently that after they leave, it's going to be really tough to see them again. So I should cherish the relationship and the moments I have with them in the moment and appreciate them for being here with me and appreciate what I have. And that's a really hard thing to do. And they're middle schoolers. Honestly, I can't blame them. Schoolers. Like, it's so hard to come to that realization in middle school. But what they represent is that ideal. And that's what I think they're just average people who are a reflection of us in a way.
Yeah.
Who just want more in life or who want to be better.
So definitely average because Mami, Orphan, Kyoko, well, tragic. Oh my god, Kyoko. And then Homura. And then Homura had a frail body, a weak constitution, had no friends until middle school. And she goes into middle school.
Homura was real sad.
And she gets a benefit from being a magical character. She gets a stronger body, just inherently.
Yeah, she
so
does.
It's finally the one thing that was hindering her.
She wanted everything. Fixed. You see that also in the first episode, which is really cool.
Yeah, technically the first magical girl we see is Homura. But
technically, yes.
First
but
one,
we don't know that she's a magical girl.
I mean, we do obviously from the design, but like the first one that I feel like we understand what at first glance what it means to be a magical girl comes from Mami.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Did we mention about the cocky from Mami? Cockiness of Mami?
Okay, so a lot of people think that Mami was cocky. I am actually in that sense. That after she interacted with Madoka, Mami became a little more... I don't want to say cocky, but...
There's something in
more... She became more confident and a little overly confident, which led to her death. A lot of people argue that is the case.
I'm not one of them. I personally think that when it comes to overconfidence, like I mentioned... she's capable. She's capable, and it's the luck factor that's big on it. and she was just unlucky, man. A very difficult situation. Some folks also reference the conversation Homura had with her. It's like when Homura says, "Let me come with you. I can help you," and I mean, this came right after Madoka said, "I would become a magical girl and be with you." So inherently, I don't. The decision to like keep Homura there is sound only because of how Homura presented herself as being a negative force and never trying to cooperate.
Do you think Mommy's whole shtick of like, I need to be capable, I need to be this, I need to be that, but do you think her death was a direct result of her naiveness? Or do you think her naiveness played a factor in her death? Because you say her death is luck, right? And
it was a bad matchup.
It was a bad matchup, sure. Do you think her naiveness played a factor in that? Do you think that she should have taken extra precautions? Or do you think it would have been possible?
She was one of the most experienced and battle ready of every magical girl we saw. And actually, no, in my opinion, is the most. Homura, close second, but Homura has the benefit of having like a very capable tactical ability.
Yeah.
And like, Homura... Well, Homura and Mami are definitely top tier. Like in Rebellion, there's an amazing gun fu fight they have, which is insane.
Talk about it during Rebellion.
Yeah, I mean, we just mentioning they had a fight. It's like, it's not much.
But yeah, it's an interesting conundrum to think about. I'm personally team. Mami was too confident, but that's definitely up for debate. I think it makes sense that luck was involved in some sense, though, because there was a sense of just randomness almost, because life is not strategic. You're not going to plan your life out immaculately every day of every month of every year. It's just not going to happen. What life throws at you sometimes can be really just sporadic, and
that's something that Mami was trying to like emphasize, the fact about being a magical girl. You can die at any moment.
Yeah, you're never safe.
And it was difficult for them to understand that kind of level because Mami was so capable.
Yeah, Mami was the most ideal magical girl.
Like, Mami...
She was she was going through her own battles internally, but, like, to the world, she showed that she was more than capable of handling her own, which was a really sad downfall for her as well.
The best thing about Mami is how she's ideal. She is very battle experienced, but she's still naive when it comes to knowing what being what their specific magical gear means. Because out of everyone in the show, eventually, Madoka, Sayaka, and every other roster member learns more about the deal that they made than Mami. Mami died knowing only the bare minimum, but
she was the most experienced.
She was the most experienced, which is insane.
There's a lot of irony there.
There is a lot of irony. But it makes sense because Mami is also has the weakest mental fortitude out of everyone.
That is true.
The moment she learns a bit of that, she breaks down. She can't handle the situation that she's in. She can't handle the reality of what they are.
Yeah, she just doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, but...
It's pretty sad, yeah.
Which always helps because Madoka and Sayaka learn slowly more and more. As the story progresses, Sayaka, you learn what becomes of their body, which explains Homura's body now. Right. And then eventually with Kyoko, Sayaka, you learn of their body, and then you learn of their ultimate faith. And there's something, and when it comes to Kyuubi, you learn his role in the entire event. You learn what he is, which is amazing because people like to bash on Kyuubi, but only because it's fun. But Kyuubi objectively has no emotions. Like, he's
a third-party member. He's like, in a way...
He's a catalyst for sure.
I almost think of Kyuubi as... When you're playing chess, there are two players. You have and both these players are controlling pawns, kings, blah, 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 blah. To me, Kyuubi is the person controlling all of this. So he doesn't care what happens to all these pawns that he's controlling as long as he can get to the end goal. And the end goal isn't necessarily bad. It's just, to him, to Kyuubi, there are necessary sacrifices that you need to make in order to attain a greater good.
It's not even sacrificing him. He's very utilitarian. There's no emotions behind his thinking. It's all logical.
Yeah, it's all logical. That's what I'm saying. It's like a chess match.
It's everything, not... Yeah, I see it.
Everything he does, everything is calculated. It doesn't. He doesn't feel.
Not everything is
towards
calculated because he's dealing with one thing that isn't calculated, which is the emotions.
the emotions. That play
He
a
is
big
someone
factor.
who could play chess, but can't accept playing poker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting conundrum. And yeah, that actually kind of just wraps up our podcast. Unless, Francisco, you have anything else to say?
Had something in mind, definitely related to QB. Definitely related to QB, but I can't remember. Oh well.
Well, tune into Rebellion, and we'll probably remember it. Then we'll talk about it. But as of now, we have finished part 1 in our part 2-part episode. Please, thank you so much, guys, for listening. We have a few shout outs to make and credit to give before we close out. Huge shout out to Know Your Meme. They kind of helped us with understanding the whole head tilt thing and why that was really important.
I mean, I knew about it.
We didn't know exactly why. We needed more evidence.
Why does that keep popping up?
Know Your Meme kind of helped us with that. TVtropes.org was another website we visited. That was more for Studio Shaft, and they discussed some similarities between Tim Burton and the other director we talked about.
Wes Anderson. Budapest
And-
Hotel. Please watch it.
Yeah, please watch that movie. That movie's fantastic. But that website talked more about the comparisons between those two, and then some more about Madoka Magica as a whole. And then lastly, we need to give credit, obviously, to AnimeNewsNetwork.com because they had an interview, actually, with Geno Orobuchi, and we were able to read the entire interview, and we were able to really understand what Geno Orobuchi was going for, and going off of Geno Orobuchi's points, we were able to formulate our own thoughts and theories and kind of connect the two to be able to bring you guys the content we have now. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Winter break is coming up for both me and Francisco, and we are both traveling. So unfortunately, we will not be able to get another episode for a little bit. Thank you guys so much for listening, and hope you guys have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.